and forgive me, I just finished eating some food. Miss Ramsey, how are you? All right, all right. So yeah, so today we decided that we wanted to do a sort of nerdy lecture on financial abuse, and really understand it. As you guys know, in the Black Business School, we've incorporated financial therapy into our economic training because a lot of us need therapy. A lot of us have gone through financial trauma. A lot of us have gone through various forms of financial abuse. A lot of us have financial anxiety, particularly given that the economy is headed kind of south. And so my wife, with her being a licensed therapist, she's been doing that for 20 years now. And she's also a full professor of social work. And then me, my doctorate's in finance. I thought that it would be fun to dig deep into some of these financial therapy, financial trauma, financial anxiety sorts of topics. So each week in the Prime program, drboyceprime.com, we cover this. Well, we do the therapy sessions
Not
about
each week. I'm sorry,
well,
jump
the financial therapy sessions are about once every other week, excuse me.
in.
And but then that's added on as an add-on to stock options and all the other things that we cover. We teach you guys in the Prime program everything from how to buy stocks. There's material on that. How to buy options is material on that. How to sell stock options to generate income. So there's a ton of material we give you guys, and part of what we offer is financial therapy. Now, some of you may not be in the Prime program yet, and you're getting a chance to kind of see what we do, in our financial therapy sessions. And if you want a recording of this, and as well as recordings of all the other sessions, Dr. Alicia has done several lectures on different topics, financial attachment, financial trauma, etc. You can actually just log in to drboyceprime.com and you can get access to all the recordings and all the archives. So that's one of the benefits in terms of being a student is you can get all the recordings, all the archives. So anyway, let's hop right into it. All right, babe. So how are you doing today?
I said it's been a long, busy day, but I'm excited to end my day talking to you finally. Um, anyway, I was a little distracted. Quincy just came downstairs. But anyway, yeah, this has been nice. I get to talk to my husband online.
And I get to talk to my wife. Funny
How
how
are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I feel like financial, when you just talk about financial anxiety and financial abuse, I know financial anxiety, financial trauma, stuff like that has been kind of a theme of many of the lectures you've done to this point, but also you think about financial abuse. I think one good place to kind of start a financial abuse conversation is not just so much in terms of relationships, male, female, or even man to man, woman to woman, whatever. We're not judging, right? But just, I think even beyond that though, I think this week there was a lot of conversation about certain Black celebrities that get controlled by money and they get punished with money. Money is used as a weapon, and I talk to students all the time about that, about how money isn't just an asset, but it can be a shield or a weapon. And so I wonder if in your conversation about financial abuse, if you even think about things like that, like in terms of some of these more public scenarios where it's like, okay, so and so said the wrong thing. Now they're going to be forced to apologize. They're going to have to donate $500,000, and then they're going to, be suspended from their job, and they're going to lose all their endorsement deals, and all their money is going to be lost. I mean, would that even fit under financial abuse? I mean, in terms of oppression of one group to another? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it absolutely fits. And it because when we talk about financial abuse, and I have slides on this I can show you, but when we talk about financial abuse, it really is controlling someone through several different ways. One, by withholding money from them. So that's very exploitive, withholding money from them. Or it could be restricting access, or or saying, or lying to them about how much money I have. Like, I'm only, think about your relationship with someone in terms of work that you're doing with this person. So you could be I'm thinking about in terms of marriages, but also in terms of any sort of relationship where you're not being honest about how much money is coming in, how much money you're making, how much money you're receiving, and how much money you're giving out or you're giving to each other. Is this relationship in terms of finances, is it equitable? Are you getting compensated properly for your work and your time? Can you assume that other people who are doing the exact same job that I'm doing with the exact same skills that I have, are they also receiving the same number of compensation? If I talk to you about a raise and you're telling me, oh, we just don't have the money in the budget for the raise. So you're not being honest about how much you can actually distribute, but then you have another conversation with someone else and you're like, oh yeah, there's plenty of money to give you for a raise. So that sort of discrimination that happens in terms of employees and employers withholding money, using money to control someone, and or withholding their access to money just by saying, well, if you don't do what we say, we can't give you that promotion. And a promotion is tied to money. So yeah, I mean, in many different ways, even in our households, even any type of relationship where you need to run your life. So families are run like a business. Businesses, universities are run like a business. Small profit, no matter what it is, it's all a business and it needs to be run like a business. And you have to be transparent, you have to be open, you have to be honest, you have to give people proper compensation, you have to come together. I think particularly in households, a husband and wife or a married people come together and they're on equal plane. And they have to try to decide and come up with different ways in which you run your household, and finances is definitely part of that. You need to figure out how you're going to run your business. Finances and having conversation about finances is part of that. It's being able to compensate somebody for their time, for their skills and their expertise in the way that's fair and not exploiting other people. And so that's a lot of areas in which I see, financial abuse happening, and definitely Black people, we're survivors of that. My daughter, 15, she just did a speech in her class about reparations. And her entire speech was about trillions of dollars that Black people are owed because of free labor and some of the consequences of that free labor for many, many hundreds of years, and here's what this compensation is. So definitely there is exploitation and so forth in that area. So absolutely. Okay. How could it not be all related?
Well, let me first of all, let me ask everybody, give me a yes in the chat if you feel like you have seen financial abuse at some point. Give me a yes or no in the chat if you've ever seen financial abuse, or you feel like you've either been hit by it, or maybe you did it to somebody else, or you just identified somebody doing that to another person. All right, so let's start with I like to start with the big picture and try to identify or just define abuse. And if you look up the word abuse, here are a few definitions. To use something to bad effect or for a bad purpose, or misuse, to misuse something. So maybe I don't know, drug abuse or something like that, or the judge abused his power by imposing the fines. That's an example that they give. So abuse, where you use something maybe in a purpose that it wasn't intended, or in a purpose that's malicious, or in a purpose that is overly self-serving. And that's interesting. So the second definition is to treat a person or an animal with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly. Riders who abuse their horses should be prosecuted. That's the example they give. They also say, as a noun, it can be used as the improper use of something, and then cruel and violent treatment of a person or animal. So what I'm picking up on is improper use and something that is maybe cruel toward someone else, right? So I think that might be a good place to start our conversation on financial abuse, is to say, okay, so money is the tool, money is the object, money is the motive, and money is used in a way that is cruel toward others. It's misused in a way that's cruel toward someone else. Okay, so did you want to, if you want to, you can, I know you pull some slides together because we're doing this kind of as a formal lecture. I know you like to kind of really nail it down. Did you want to share some slides?
I did. That was a good introduction. And I think, you know, it's exerting, when I talked about exerting control over someone, it's it's saying that, you know, all of us are in positions where we have to ask for something we want. You know, all of us are in positions where we are left vulnerable. And I think being vulnerable is really the key to being susceptible to any form of abuse, particularly financial abuse, which is very common, by the way. Common form of abuse is financial abuse. A lot of people don't realize that, but I think that what I would add to that, you mentioned an animal or a horse or whatever. You know, a horse is, you know, somewhat dependent on their caregivers to care for them, and you know, they need certain things. And so when you have something in captivity, if you have where you have some scenario where someone is dependent on another person, and how could we not be? I mean, in marriages, you're interdependent on each other. Like, I need you, Boyce. I hope you feel like you need me. You have this interdependence. And so many times, if you're not showing up where I felt like we agreed that you would be, then I'm just like, oh, okay, I thought this would happen. Why is it happening? Or if I do the same. And so it's you do it to have a relationship with somebody, there is a sense of vulnerability there. And so it's like, I have access to you, no one else should have access to you. And how am I going to do that in a way that's very respectful of you and of your time? And I think that it gets into a place of abuse when you just don't consider the other person at all. And if someone brings anything up to your attention and you don't apologize for it, you don't make it right, you don't make amends for it, I think you get into this toxic sort of relationship. And you mentioned Black people. I mean, we have a very toxic relationship with a lot of entities in the media now, where it's just like, we don't care about what you're going through or how you might be impacted by these decisions. We only care about this one person who has control over you. So absolutely, it's what happens to you. And many times, I will pull my slides up, but many times we talk about, there's two particular groups of people who are particularly vulnerable. And one group is definitely older adults, especially older adults who have a neurocognitive delay or neurocognitive issue. They are definitely open for some sort of financial abuse, in particular, abuse in general, abuse and neglect. Older adults who are very isolated, who have health problems, and they're not able to be the best person they can be in terms of making financial decisions in their life. And so you do have to give that up to, you know, a relative or a spouse or someone who can kind of stand in for you and make decisions on your behalf. And in that vulnerable place, because maybe you don't have the interpersonal resources or the cognitive resources to do these things, you do leave yourself open. So that's one group that's definitely susceptible to abuse, and quite often are abused financially, are older adults or individuals with a neurocognitive delay. Because there's also I used to work with the developmentally disabled population back in my 20s. And you used to have problems because, like, people would know when they get their check every month. And so there'd be women who prey on, you know, men who had, you know, who maybe, we don't use the word retarded anymore, but who have maybe some sort of a delay. They would take advantage of them and take their little checks, and all sorts of things would happen. And meanwhile, their bills weren't being paid because they were giving it all to this lady at the first of the month. And so financial abuse, and you know, that's another form of financial abuse. It comes in the form of domestic violence, which is partly part of it. And so men are definitely on the receiving end of being a survivor of financial abuse, as well as women. And so that is also something, another group of individuals who are very vulnerable financial abuse. So yeah, I say older adults or adults who have who maybe their cognition is deteriorating in some way, they're susceptible to it, vulnerable to it, and also people who are in relationships with other individuals where they're trying to exploit them, and part of that entails money as well. So
Mm.
there we go.
Okay. So, yeah, while you pull up your slides,
Oh, okay.
finish some thoughts based on, what you were, just referring to. So, when I think about financial abuse, I know one of the biggest things that does come to mind also is you talked about vulnerable populations being most affected by various forms of financial abuse, which I agree. And it's and I also would say that, whether you're in the vulnerable population, I think sometimes is a little bit of a choice to some extent, meaning that if I if I am like, for example, a lot of rappers get financially abused by record labels because they sign the contracts and the contracts are exploitative, and they don't get what they think they deserve from the record label. And and while my heart goes out to them, you know, I also kind of say, well, they let you read the contract. They gave you access to it. You could have said no, but uh but maybe not being so interested in reading the contract, or not being interested in the financial literacy, or not being interested in, protecting yourself, maybe, because you're caught up with, whatever's distracting you, being famous or whatever. Maybe that opened that door for you to be more vulnerable. Or even if you think about a relationship where one partner controls all the finances and the other partner doesn't even know what's going on. Well, part of that is a choice, and I know that when we talk to our kids, we tell them, you should know what's going on financially. You shouldn't, so it is interesting when you're talking about abuse. I kind of think it happens, all the time. It happens across groups. It happens, across individuals and relationships. And you talked about the vulnerable population. Some groups can't help it. You can't help it if you're a senior citizen with Alzheimer's, or if you're a disabled person or something like that. That makes perfect sense. You need an advocate. But then also sometimes there's a choice about advocating for ourselves. And one of the things that I did put together within the Black Business School was kind of an economic survival plan, almost like economic self-defense. I did a lecture on it. I'll try to share it with you guys, and I'll put it inside the Prime program. But literally, it's designed to say, okay, financial abuse is going to happen in a capitalist society quite often. How do you protect yourself? So if you want to get started with your slides, you can.
Yeah, I do want to get started, but before then, I just want to I want to reflect a little bit on when you said it's a choice. Like, could
I
you?
didn't say it's always a choice. I said it could be a choice. Sometimes it's there's choice involved in, if I'm a victim because I'm not prepared, that is some degree of a choice, right?
Yeah, I'm just I see what you mean by choice. I'm very just cautious about using that word choice because it can come across as judgmental, and that's a tough one for just in looking at people who are in a place of vulnerability. I think choice is an interesting choice of a word. I think
But
nobody
my
no one
words are a choice.
yeah, but it's
Unless you're telling me I can't help it, I couldn't help but to say it.
yeah, because I don't want to get into like victim blaming, or I don't want to get into, well, it's just your choice to be abused. I mean, I think that it's way more complex and way more dynamic than that. And it's so easy on the outside looking in to say, well, if she was being abused by her husband and he was controlling her with the money, why don't she just leave? It's her choice. She could just choose to take the kids and leave. And I don't think, in my clinical experience and working with people who have been survivors of this type of treatment, it's just a very dynamic thing. So I just hesitate from using the word choice. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh no, that's why I'm here, right? I want to say it
Yeah.
in a way that you can't say it, right? Because I think as a therapist, you have to be empathetic and things like that. And I also believe in being also I'm a mathematician, which means I'm a problem solver, right? So as a problem solver, I've been a victim. There have been times where I've been victimized. All of us have at some point. But as a problem solver, I would always say, well, is there anything that I could have had in my own power? I don't like believing that
Right.
the world
Right.
that nothing is in my power. I choose to believe like, okay, what are some things that I can do? Right. So
Yes.
I went to school and I got a PhD in finance and in money, which significantly reduced the probability that I'm going to be financially exploited. Now it's still possible. I can still get financially abused, misled. It can happen to anybody, but it's less likely to happen when you kind of know what's going on. It's like if I got a black belt in kung fu, I'm less likely to get beat up. You know,
Now this
right?
sounds like great. Okay, so I'm glad you explained it a little further. This makes sense to me. Okay, because I think in the middle of it, it's not to say, well, you have a choice of being abused or not,
No, no, no.
but I think
I don't, and I don't even think it's a
on the
matter of blaming.
survival side of it, like
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think you have to blame the victim. I don't think you have
yeah,
to blame. I mean, you blame the perpetrator, right? That's who gets blamed. So it's not even. I don't even think the word blame has even come into the conversation. I think it has to come into sort of just proactive, proactive thinking. Are there things we can do to like for example, if I want to minimize the number of times I get abused, number one, I'm going to try my best to identify and avoid abusive people. If you talk about financial abuse, like even when I was single before I married you, I avoided dating women that I felt were going to exploit me because of money. I
how
didn't
would
that
you know? How would you know?
you just watch people, you listen to them, you pay attention, you watch their action. You watch them long enough, then
They're
eventually you
tricky
figure out.
people. I mean, they're really
They can be
manipulative.
tricky. Yeah, yeah, but
But yeah, that's a
yeah, I
good.
mean, and because that's the thing, I've had money for a long time, so I learned 20 years ago how to identify people that only wanted me to be around me for my money. I'm not talking about dating. I'm talking about just even friendships. Even to this day, there's certain friendships I just can't have because you always asking me for something. So it's and when you have a lot that people can get, then you have to protect what you have. So I'm gonna let you. I'd like for you to
Okay.
up your slides because I want people to hear from a different. They hear from me a lot. I want them
Okay.
to hear from you. So
Okay. Yeah, I get it. But I just wanted to say, like, I like what you were saying because, after when you said survivor, and on the end of it, you can look back and say, good grief, why didn't I notice that sign back then? Why didn't I notice that? Like, it is good once you're through it to be reflective and to say, you know what, I'm now the wiser. I won't do this, so that sounds great on the other end of it after you've gone through everything and you processed everything. Then you can look back on it and say, what were my lessons learned? And that's where I think we all have in that choice. In that sense is more of a sense of empowerment and not a place of victim blaming. So anyway, I just
Right.
wanted to say that makes.
Okay. Now let's get to your slides
You
because
want to get to my
I
slide? Oh my
want to
God.
get to dinner tonight.
We go on and on. Oh my God, it's half hour. It's like 30 minutes past the hour. Time flies, boys. Okay. So welcome everybody to the Dr. Boyce Prime Student. This is normally how I start, Boyce. If you are interested in the recordings of the coaching sessions number 1 through 6, you can go to drboyceprime.com. I am Dr. Alicia. Here's my information. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I am a college professor. And today I am talking to you in session number 7 with my wonderful husband, Boyce. Okay. So I just want to recap what we talked about before. The very first time we met, we talked about financial anxiety. That was session number 1. We took self-assessments. You got at the end of session 1, you knew whether you had some excessive worry and is particularly excessive worry in relationship to finances. The second time we met, we talked about getting to know your money personality. We also took another assessment on that, and then I encourage you to use that assessment with people that you are in contact with, and that you have business relationships with, people in your family, so that you can get to know each other better. And I think that different money personalities, of course, we complement each other. I look at it from differences in terms of complementing each other. Our third session, we talked about attachment style. You took an attachment style quiz. You know your dominant attachment style and how it's related to the way you look at money. Then we went a little more into it in session number 4 about attachment styles. There's 4 different types of attachment. There's secure attachment, there's avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, and the third one is a combination of avoidant and anxious, which is called disorganized attachment. We went through all of those things. We talked about how it related specifically to your financial decision making in terms of purchasing items, your future planning, taxes, insurance, education, planning for education for your children, estate planning, all of those things. We talked a little bit about money mindset, keeping up with the Joneses, all of these things we kind of spoke about in session number 4, but I am open to coming back and attacking some of these topics individually in later sessions. Session number 5, we talked about trauma, specifically about trauma and its impact on finances. Sometimes we have very painful memories and growing up, and a lot of those have economic and financial implication, as well as economic and financial causes for some of these unfortunate experiences. And after 5 sessions of talking about anxiety, attachment styles, all of these things, last time we met, which was before the All Black National Convention, we talked about healing. We went through several exercises, healing exercises for you to do, to try to carve out some space for you to really fully experience and feel some of the things that you experienced that you probably shouldn't have experienced, or things that you needed to have had that you didn't have. Our last session that we met before the convention specifically looked at healing. Today, I'm going right back to another kind of sticky topic. I want to talk about financial abuse today, but I don't know, Boyce, do you think for future sessions, is there any way to get like ideas about topics related to this coaching, this group coaching session?
We can definitely do that. And what I'll do with everybody here, some of you are not in the Prime program, which is at drboyceprime.com, but those of you that just wanted to do financial therapy with Dr. Alicia, all this stuff is recorded and it's archived, so you can go through it and have access to it. And I'm thinking that what we can do is I'll paste something inside the class where people can suggest topics.
Okay, that would be nice. And I also, in the class, I'm glad we're talking about it. I also, in the recordings, all of the assessments you can take, and the assessments in the recording, but I want to work on, and maybe I'll have this for the next time that we meet, I want to work on maybe having a handout. Could you have like a handout attached to it so that people can just fill out the assessment themselves and score it themselves if I give them instructions? I want to do that so that you don't have to go through all of the recordings in order to get the assessments. So I think that would be really nice handout for the students.
But they don't have to go through the recordings to get this. The assessments are in the record. So you just want to put the assessment separate. Okay, got it.
I kind of want
and actually I'm looking inside the class. Basically there is a form where people can leave a question for you or a topic suggestion.
Oh, really? Okay. How do I see that? Can you give me access to your? Is that
I'll give you access. Yeah. So let's move forward, but I'll make sure you get everything that you need. And everybody that wants to just enroll to specifically just learn from in the financial therapy, which is it's Dr. Alicia's class, but I participate and I jump in and support. You can actually go to my website. If you go to boycewatkins.com, there's a link there, and you can actually get a discount. Use the code word Dr. Boyce, Dr. Boyce, all one word. It'll take 20% off. And so you can just go to boycewatkins.com and look for financial therapy with Dr. Alicia. So yeah, I think that generally, with all of this, I think that financial therapy is kind of overlooked in our
It is.
community, because I kind of feel like we, first of all, we don't really get the therapy, as much therapy as we need. And then second of all, mindset is literally one of the biggest obstacles to wealth accumulation for the Black community. Like it's one of those things that where the more I examine Black wealth and I just really try to understand, where did all the money go? Why don't we have the wealth that we deserve? I start finding all these areas that nobody really talks about. Like you have financial advisors that'll talk about stock market investing, real estate, starting businesses, stuff like that. But when you ask that fundamental question of where did the Black wealth go, you got to look at things that people don't even talk about. Like you got to look at things like family structures and just the fact that when you're working together as a family and your family is starting businesses together, then you're going to have more wealth than somebody who just where the family members don't work together, they're fighting all the time, and they're all working jobs and working for their oppressor. But then also, if you go deeper, then if you go to that next level and say, okay, well, if family, for example, just one of many things I could pick, if family is one of the great determinants of why Black wealth is missing and why Black wealth is dropping, what's causing the families to fall apart? Well, then you got to go into the mind. You got to go into the mindset. You got to go into the mindset and the culture, which they feed off of each other. Culture breeds mindset, mindset breeds culture. And then you say, oh, I get it, because we haven't done the work. We're either learning the wrong things or we're not working to sort of break these generational curses. It's creating this culture that's anti-family, which ultimately becomes anti-wealth. So if because look, if every person in our community was to do the work and really sort of make themselves a person that can create a wealthy space around them, not just economically, but otherwise, meaning like how I deal with other people, how I engage with you as my spouse, how I deal with my children, how I deal with my parents, my siblings, my friends. Do I look to build or do I look to destroy? All these factors that come out in therapy, where if you find out, okay, the reason I don't build with anybody is because I don't trust anybody. I'm scared of everything. I'm mad as hell. I have depression and anxiety. All these untreated mental health issues that are literally just like these scabs on your brain and your body that have never been healed. Then why would you ever think you could have a healthy situation with anyone? So I think this is important. Like this financial therapy work that's happening here, I think is literally one of the most critical elements of the wealth building process. If your mind ain't right, then your money won't ever be right. So go ahead. I'll let you
The beauty of what you're saying is that, yeah, your mindset, if your mind isn't right, it's not going to happen. But the beauty of it is that there are ways that can work, that can get your mind right. Because when you're in this constant state of stress and constant state of angst, everything, the world is dangerous to you. That's what happens. You perceive every neutral thing as something coming to attack me. The world is dangerous. And the thing is that what I talked about, actually, I talked about this at the convention. I talked about this a couple of days ago, and I talked about this in our healing session, is that it's so important in your individual life to have a sacred space, a healing space, and it should be between you adults. It should be between you and your significant other. There should be a space there where the two of you can just relax and really be vulnerable with each other and know that you can do that and you can count on each other and you can be there for each other. All of us as adults, when we are able to have that, it does change the way your brain functions. it does change the way in which when you leave the house, when you go out into the world, virtually or physically, it will make you more confident. And so it's good to have that person with you. It would be nice if it was a spouse. It should be like your spouse as adults. When you're a child, it needs to be someone who's dependable, somebody who is tuning into you and what's going on with you, and someone who is responsive and just interested in what's happening with you as a child growing up. And when you don't have that, you are going to be sitting here having a whole lot of attachment issues and trust issues because you were never encouraged or never had that sacred space, that important space for you to be able to have someone who's there to listen to you. It all needs to be very empathetic. And so that's what you need as a child growing up. And then when you're an adult, you also need that in your interpersonal relationships. Particularly your significant other. And it's so important like to have that, because that is what healing does. I can't guarantee that my children, when they leave this house, that they won't have painful things happen to them. But I can guarantee one thing: when they come home, they'll have at least some people, me and you, and other people that care about them enough to hear their problems. We can't solve their problems, but we can definitely be a good listening ear. And that is what fixes your brain when it comes to that sort of thing. So you're right, it is a brain thing, it's a mindset thing. And there's nothing wrong with any of us, like no matter. And I know when we talked about trauma and finances, I also provided everybody with the adverse childhood experiences survey. And so people took that, and I don't care, there's nothing wrong with anybody who scored a 1. There's nothing wrong with people who scored 2. There's nothing wrong with people who even scored a 9. By the way, the higher the score, the more traumatized you were, the more adverse childhood experiences you experience. The thing is that no matter what your number is or what your number was when you took that assessment, I want you to at least walk away knowing that there's nothing wrong with you. What was wrong was the way people interacted with you. What was wrong was the way your circumstances. What was wrong was you being violated in the way that you were violated as a child. What was wrong was being yelled at, was being hit, was being attacked. Those things were wrong, but there's nothing wrong with you. And even when it comes to mindset, and even when it comes to the effect that type of environment has on your brain, there's also nothing wrong with your brain, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's your body's way of adapting to these terrible circumstances that you experience, these terrible circumstances that you grew up with. So don't think that just because these things happen to you that you're fundamentally flawed. And I think that's what a lot of children do. They internalize it. They say, you know what, moms are supposed to be nice to their child. And my mom wasn't nice to me, so there must be something wrong with me. How come I couldn't get my mom to act like every other mom that I think should be responsive, or my dad, or wherever it is? So you internalize that. And so I would love for all of us to walk away today, no matter what your ACEs score, it had nothing to do with you. It had to do with how you are just going to adapt to these circumstances. And so we're always adapting. Our brain is always adapting. It's never too late. You're never too late. It's never too late to do anything. I don't care how old you are, but to know that healing is possible. Yes, Boyce.
Why don't we get to the slides, babe?
Oh, but that's
go ahead and get started. Get started with the slides.
Okay.
We're 45 minutes in. Okay, go
we
ahead.
are 45 minutes in. Okay, so I'll skip this part. So okay, so this is very interesting. I think that American households are just vulnerable. American households are vulnerable, and their vulnerability in terms of finances has been growing. There have been studies that looked at this for the past 3 decades. And what we found is that poverty rates are rising. Median family income is getting lower the past 30 years. Families who have been saving a lot of money have less money to save. And income inequality has increased tremendously over the past decades, 3 or 4 decades. The top 1% they have increased their wealth by 276%, where the share of the wealth in the bottom percentage of people have only increased about 25%. So, Boyce, you want to explain? You want to explain
Yeah,
the black?
I want to look at this chart a little
Yeah.
closer. So it says most Black adults say they can meet their basic needs with at least a little bit left over for extras. Okay, so there's a percentage of Black adults who, describing their household's financial situation, say they meet basic needs with ease and have a little left over, just meet, don't even have enough. Okay, it's a lot of information. So it looks to me like the more highly educated you are, the better off you are. I mean, if you look at that green in terms of those who are meeting their needs with ease, that goes higher with education level, and obviously higher with income. And then, so I mean, nothing really surprises me about it in terms of what to expect. I do know that generally speaking in America, wealthy people have been wealthy and financially literate and financially educated people have been able to do far better than those who don't know anything about, what's going on money wise, and that's just a general trend. I mean, that's just something that's been going on for a long time. So it is harder to make ends meet. Inflation, has everybody's been watching what's going on with inflation. Workers' rights have really been declining. So when I talk to our groups, the people that are here, because remember, those who are listening now are not regular people. It's not like we have 10 million people watching. We have a few hundred maybe. And you all are individuals who are here because you're thinking ahead. You're probably doing better than most of the people around you. And so, the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to know the value of information and knowledge, and making sure your children understand that. And then also financial discipline, avoiding the mind traps of spending and wastefulness that tend to just plague society. Rich people get rich because they can brainwash consumers very easily. They can trick people into wanting to buy the latest iPhone or Beats by Dre headphones and all that stuff, or Gucci bags and all that. Bernard Arnault, who runs who owns Louis Vuitton and all that. I mean, he's worth $100 billion because he convinced people to pay $5,000 for a $50 purse. So don't get hypnotized by that. Go ahead, Alicia.
All right. I think that with some of the some of the financial disparities that are more and more growing in U.S. households, financial vulnerability is also, we talked about vulnerability, how it leaves you susceptible to exploitation. And one particular group that is more susceptible to exploitation is older adults. And you can see some of the contributors of that is social isolation. So if you're in, adults who have a nice, healthy lifestyle, who join organizations, who are volunteering at their church, who are have a lot of friends, who are out there doing a lot of things, who are vibrant. Like I talk about how my mom goes to yoga every day. She goes to the movies all the time with her friends. She goes out to eat and stuff all the time. She has a very dense social network. That is one of the things that will protect you from exploitation. How's your health? So if your health is declining, you're more likely to be exploited in terms of financial abuse. You're more likely to be exploited. If you have neurocognitive issues, if you have issues making decisions in terms of your finances, you're more likely to be isolated and financially manipulated in a lot of different ways. $2.9 billion in losses related to elderly people, older adults who have been, who are victims of financial abuse. And who did MetLife in 2009 did this study, and that's what they estimate, about $2.9 billion in losses. And what they were finding in their study was that individuals who were caretakers of people who had these vulnerabilities, individuals who were caretakers of them, that they were actually taking money from them, very small amounts initially, and then it would gradually increase. And so financial institutions are starting to become very aware of it, and they want to try to address some of these things. But they conducted this study in 2009, and they did it again in 2011, and they found that there was a 12% increase in the amount of money that is taken from older adults from individuals who prey on the vulnerable elderly or the vulnerable adults. And that's something to keep in mind. Also, what we know is that the person or the individuals who are available to care for people who are vulnerable, that they tend to themselves have mental health issues. So they could be suffering from addictions, gambling addictions, mental health issues like bipolar depression, and other sort of substance abuse issues. Those are the individuals who are, who are attaching themselves to people who are vulnerable adults and exploiting them. One aspect of financial abuse. Any questions on that, Boyce?
No
I
question.
don't know how Big Mama gets exploited because her drug addict son comes around and wants to take money. Mama, I'll take you to the store.
Yeah, well,
Pay me first.
they're people on that. Remember Jungle Fever? Remember Samuel Jackson would come and dance for his mama, and she would give him money. And that I've seen that in a lot of families. I've seen that. I mean, a whole lot. Big Mama getting took by her, her son, who ain't quite got it together. And I know that there was one point where I was investing money for my mother, so she had to go. She had some money sitting around. And I said, "Well, I can help you get a return on your money. You don't have to just sit there." So she went to the bank to get the money out, and they wouldn't let her have the money for a
That's
long
right.
time because they were worried that somebody was exploiting her, or that maybe I was some drug addict son that was trying to get mama to. Yeah, and apparently that elderly financial abuse is a big deal. In fact, the worst story I heard recently was a 90-year-old man who had bought a bunch of Bitcoin back when it was like $1. And so this man had $2 million worth of Bitcoin, 2 million. So he goes and he had a question for customer support. So he Google searched Coinbase customer support. Well, somehow they found a way to spoof the number. So when he called Coinbase customer support, they were like, "Okay, we need your passwords, we need your login information, and blah, blah, blah." They took the whole $2 million.
And there's so much shame, and there's so much to that. Like, you don't go around telling people this, there's so much attached to that. And they never got caught, did they?
Yeah, no, they didn't. They didn't.
Yeah.
Well, it's crypto. It's hard to get crypto back.
It's hard to get caught. So that's the thing. It's like that kind of deviant behavior, exploiting older adults, like very frequently people don't get caught for that. And that's why a lot of people do it, is because they don't think they will get caught.
Yeah.
So
well, even and you talk about like just the shame of being a victim in that space. I know
how stupid can I be?
or even when Cardi B was talking about how she used to drug men and rob them and stuff like that. And I heard that's like that there's actually more than a few people that do that kind of thing. A lot of times they rely on the fact that men, when they get harmed in that way, are not going to report it. They're just maybe too embarrassed and things like that. So you're right. Yeah, that's very serious stuff. So continue, please. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. So the next here is another group of people, intimate partner violence and economics. Yeah, I mean, this is another group that I think is particularly vulnerable to financial abuse. Is definitely individuals who are in a relationship where there's violence. And what's interesting is that 95% of domestic violence victims experience economic abuse. 95%. So that's a pretty big number. And what a lot of studies have shown is that victims of domestic violence, they losing money because they have to call off of work. Their spouse is taking their check and not letting them have any of the money in their that they earn. They prevent, because what they're doing is they're preventing them, they're controlling them and preventing them from leaving. And coercing them into accumulating debt too. So these things are happening. There is another study done by corporate executives, and they were saying that 55% of corporate executives cite harmful impact on productivity in their companies due to domestic violence. Domestic violence victims lose 8 million days of unpaid work due to domestic violence issues, right? So that, and they survey more than 32,000 full-time jobs. So you're losing pay, and it costs the US economy and medical costs and all of those things, and loss of productivity. So all of that is something to keep in mind in terms of not just financial abuse between two people in terms of domestic violence, but some of the outcomes of what happens when there's violence in the household. You know, the bottom line is that survivors are more likely to be economically insecure and due to limited resources. And we do know that 85% of domestic violence survivors are women. And I would say that that number is probably larger for men. I think not larger than 85%, but I think that there are probably more men who are survivors of domestic violence, particularly financial abuse. They just don't report it. Not only, you know, it was interesting, you were talking about Cardi B's, wasn't she in a movie about it? Wasn't there a movie about it? Were
I
they
didn't know if she was.
glorified?
I think she might have been in the movie, but there was a movie like that where they kind of it seemed
The
like they
movie was
propped it up
very
where
disturbing, by the
where
way.
the guys, they almost made it like the men who was done to that, like they deserved it, you know, and that it's interesting, like the way they portrayed it was that the schemers were more like the victims, and that the people that were victimized were really the bad guys, you know, like, okay, he's a prick anyway, so he deserves to have this happen to him. And
They
I
were
think,
justified in doing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Mhm.
it's you know, I think in general, when you talk about, you know, financial abuse, um, it comes down to me to this basic principle, that money is power. And anything that's powerful can be abused. Anything that's powerful can be used as a weapon or as a shield, everything in between, you know, like drugs are powerful. Drugs can heal you and make you better, or drugs can turn you to an addict, right? Drugs can be abused. You know, you can harm somebody with drugs. You drug them, right? Fire, same thing, fire, guns, all that stuff, right? So with money, I think that the way to think about um financial abuse, or one way to think about it might be to think about, you know, if you talk about something else that's powerful, like guns or fire or drugs.
Or
Well,
sex.
what do they do? They would, you know, I mean, really, what do they do when they want you to be, you know, like less likely to abuse a gun or fire than, or to harm somebody or to harm yourself? They do gun safety training. There's a whole protocol. Or I was today, I went, I'm working on my pilot's license, which drives my wife crazy, but you know, I got on an airplane today and I flew over the neighborhood and I was flying the plane and everything. But before we got on that plane, there's about 100 different safety checks we have to go through to make sure that the plane is safe, that we're not going to hurt ourselves. Also, in order for me to get my pilot's license, there's a bunch of safeguards they force me to go through to make sure that I am, not gonna harm someone, that I'm not gonna do a 9/11 and drive the plane into a building, or or use the plane in some way that's unhealthy, or that'll hurt me or hurt other people, right? So I think with money it's the same way. I think that when you talk about financial power, uh when I think about two ways, one or the other, right? If you're a person who has the ability or capacity to abuse other people, I think that there's like almost like a type of ethical mandate to help that person learn to use their power for good. Like, I'll give you two extreme examples. Look at that white lady that married Jeff Bezos, who divorced him, and now she's just using her economic power to change the world. She's given billions of dollars away to universities and foundations, and she's really seen the power of her money to make the world better. Now let's look at the other extreme, Donald Trump. He's a guy that always had a lot of financial power, but he's been abusive to everybody. Donald Trump has been a prick for as long as I
He
have
was a
seen.
bully, right? Was that what he
He's a
was?
prick, he's a bully, he's all those things, right? He's the guy is not a nice person, because he knew as a kid, somebody gave him a bunch of money and no accountability, and said, all this money is nothing more than validation of your, narcissistic tendencies. I know you don't like me to use that word narcissist.
Well, you can say tendency.
I'm going to use it in a non-scientific way, right?
Okay.
Right. Or when I had my conversations with Kanye West, I was trying to help him understand, like, you have some power, you have some money here that could really, really change some things. Like, you could change the whole Black community overnight. And I don't know if it sunk in or not. I was hoping that it would, because a lot of our celebrities have a lot of economic power. And it's fascinating because they're supposed to be the ones who are able to use that power for something amazing. But instead, they actually become the victims of other people's financial abuse.
Or perpetrators.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Think about how many times, when I think about financial abuse in terms of how many times you hear about celebrities going broke and they blame it on their financial advisors and their lawyers and their accountants and everything, right? Or how many times have you seen a celebrity apologizing for whatever because I farted too loud, so now the whole white community wants me to apologize because my farts were anti-Semitic.
And by the way, I want to say something. That is financial abuse.
Yes, it is.
That
Go
is
ahead,
financial
please.
abuse,
Your
because
turn. You talk. Go
just
ahead.
as I just want to jump in, just as women, well, we'll just say women because it's more likely women, just as women cite financial abuse or financial reasons why they go back to an abusive partner, by the way, that's their number one reason, is because I'm just going to just go back to him and just stay with him. I can't leave him because of economics, and I got to think about my kids, and I got to think about my children. A lot of women do that. Like, that's their number one reason actually for going back. I'm thinking that that's the same case in what you're talking about. You farted too loud. You got to apologize for it. And why would you apologize? Why you apologize to the person who abused you? Because you're doing something, it's flatulence. You know what I mean? But no, they're going back to their abusers, because they're saying, I need my check, I need my money. And I think it seems like some people aren't going back to their abusers. Some people are just checking out, but there are a lot of people who have to take humble pie, unfortunately, and decide because of economic reasons, they have to go back to the people who are passing out that money.
Well, let me ask you this. So just talking about abuse in general, and then let's apply it to financial abuse. What are some ways to overcome abuse? Like, if I'm an abuse victim, I'm going to make a guess, and then I'd like for you to give me your expert opinion, because you see lots of clients. By the way, Alicia's website is coachingwithdralicia.com, and she does see clients. So feel free to go take a look. It's coachingwithdralicia.com. If you'd like to go take a look.
Oh, wait, let me,
are you going to type in the
share
chat?
my screen. No, I can share my screen.
Okay. Well, you share the screen and I'm going to keep talking.
Okay.
So, okay, so here's my guess. My guess is that if I'm a victim of abuse, I've got to first of all do the work to figure out what part I might play in allowing these things to happen. I don't know. Like, what is it? Maybe if I'm in a bad relationship, I choose people that remind me of my father, my mother, whatever. Maybe my self-esteem, like I don't love myself, right? If my self-worth is low, I'm more likely to allow others to abuse me, etc. And then I'm thinking, so it's after you do the work internally, then I'm thinking it might be a matter of just renegotiating my relationships, either fixing it or walking away and getting out of that situation. What are your thoughts in terms of specific steps an abuse victim might take?
Yeah, I think number one, you need to think about safety. Okay. Sometimes when you're in a domestic violence situation, it may not be the safest thing to leave.
Okay.
Sometimes, because when you just say, man, screw this is enough. I'm taking my kids, I'm up and I'm gone and I'm out of here. Sometimes that can be very dangerous for individuals when you want to leave, because if you leave, what you're doing is that you are abruptly taking your power back. Because remember, domestic violence is intimate partner violence is all about power. And when you decide you want to leave, you're zapping the power away. And then the other person's like, oh my God, what do? I got to try to gain this power again. And so it can lead into a very contentious situation where it could be worse for you and the children. And we don't want to even think about all the different scenarios of what can happen when a person who's a victim of physical abuse, and as well as psychological and emotional as well, what happens when they want to leave. They get all sorts of terrible things can happen to them. So that was the very first thing. The first thing is really get to a place where you have safety. And sometimes
what if it's not a situation where you're necessarily in physical danger? I'm talking about, I want to go back. I want to dig into financial abuse, like how to get away from that. I want to link it back to that. I wasn't talking specifically about
okay, well, you're telling a clinician to talk about domestic violence situation. So
no. I said abuse, not necessarily violence. Though. Even though violence is a form of abuse, I was talking about just abuse. Like if I feel like if I'm on my job and I'm getting abused on my job, or if I
okay,
I'm in a relationship and my partner is just mean and I just whatever.
So is your partner mean or is your partner abusive? I think we need to I think that we need to watch, just as we need to watch how we start calling everybody narcissistic and stop gaslighting me, you are triggering me. I think we need to get away from somebody says something you don't like. That doesn't mean that person's abusing me, that person. And I don't want to I want to reserve the word abuse to what I was describing, like physical abuse. Psychological abuse is a real thing. Like it is very damaging. It's very chaotic situation. Emotional abuse is huge. Okay. So just because somebody was mean, you can't say stop abusing me. Okay. So let's put abuse, the word abuse, let's put that aside. And let's just say you're just taking advantage of somebody. You're not being kind. You're not being nice. You're not being respectful. Let's use a little more, let's use words that describe it a little better.
So I guess I want to know, how do I fix it? Like what are some steps?
Well,
if I feel like I'm being, like if I'm Kyrie Irving, I'm being abused by the NBA financially. Like maybe think about it like that. Or if I am on a job that I hate and I'm being abused financially, let's
just say you're not being compensated on the job in the way that you hope that you would be compensated. Let's be more descriptive in that. And because I think that was the point, was not to use abuse and stuff, like throw those labels around. Let's just say you're on the job and you realize that you're not being compensated in the way that you should be compensated, or you're I don't know how we Kyrie Irving, you're not being allowed to speak your mind. You're being cruelly, we can say cruel, people are being cruel to you in a way where you're not able to fully express yourself. in the way. So I would like to keep it more descriptive. I think that you just need to plan your exit. You need to set up some boundaries. Set up boundaries. Say, listen, let me just tell you what I need. Okay. I need to be able to say what's on my mind. I need to be able to tweet what I want to tweet. Let's renegotiate our relationship with each other and come up with a better way of interacting. Let's just say, here's what's going on. These are things that I really need to be a human being. Yes, I'm playing basketball, but you know what? I need to be able to have freedom of speech. I need to be able to talk about things. I need to be able to express myself in the way that I feel that's closely adhered to who I am. I need to be able to do these things. You can't control all these aspects of me. I'm not harming anybody, and I'm not declaring, I don't know what the word is. I'm not declaring war on anybody, but I'm just being able to express myself. And I think that if you're in a situation where you just can't get through to somebody, and you're not able to get your job to compensate you in the way that you feel that you've been compensated, go look somewhere else. You're in a relationship with someone and you're really working with them, and you're saying, listen, I don't like to be called names. You're not going to call me names. Don't say I don't like being abused. Be descriptive. Say, you know what? I don't like when you call me names. Or I really wish that you can contain that, because that's disrespectful. And if you're upset about something, how about you describe what exactly that I'm doing, and I'll try to fix it, and we'll work on things together. But if not, I don't know how much of this name calling thing I can really put up with, or whatever it is in terms of your interpersonal relationships, or in terms of your job. I like to just, I think that with your employer, I think it's fine. Explore other avenues of employment.
Okay.
You're in a relationship.
Okay, so
You
let
can't,
me try to summarize it.
try to exit.
I
Exit
want to get
plan.
okay, I want to get to the heart of this here. So it sounds like you said, if I'm dealing with financial abuse, like if I'm in a relationship, let's be specific. I don't want to talk about all
Oh
abuse.
yeah.
I want to talk about financial abuse in particular, right? So if I'm dealing with financial abuse, maybe if I'm a mother and my son is abusing me and making me feel like if I don't give him money, he won't love me anymore. I can draw boundaries. I plan, maybe you said plan your exit. How would I plan my exit from my son?
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you, I have had this happen to me many times in my clinical experience. You could definitely say, listen, we can sit here and we can talk about the weather, we can talk about these things, but the minute you start taking money from me, or the minute you start asking me to give you money, this conversation is over. You need to skedaddle. I'm not giving you any more money. And not only that, but you get other people around you. You tell people, be like, listen, Johnny keeps asking me for money. I'm going to talk to your sister about that. We're going to get together. What's going on with you that you don't have the money that you do, that you need? Like, what is this? Like, we're not going to do this, So I think it's very important to draw boundaries around what's going on.
Okay. Well, what's really interesting is that, when you talk about financial abuse, one of the type of financial abuse that affects a lot of Black women that I've heard them talk about is there's this term I heard somebody use that was really funny called the hobosexual. A hobosexual is like the man who is dating you because he wants access to your money. And I know that a lot of I've seen this happen to more than one Black woman I know that was single and had a good job making good money, because Black women have a lot of education, and the ones that are doing well are doing really well. And she said that she had an issue sometimes with dating men that, were just pretty much there because they weren't doing well financially, or wanted a couch to sleep on, or, and one lady actually told me that that her boyfriend, I guess because she was kind of looking, she was actively looking for a partner, and he was Mr. Wonderful. And she went through her credit card bills and she saw a pair of $600 shoes that were not her size. So she went and investigated and found that he was using her money to buy things for other women and things like that. And so I guess it's kind of that would be a type of financial abuse, right? Where it's like if somebody identifies that you need something that
Yeah, I mean, we could use financial abuse, of course, but he stole money from her. I called the police. Like, this person stole my credit card and stole my money from me. Like,
right,
he's a
but would
thief.
that be would that fit under the label of financial abuse? Like, I
I
mean,
mean,
I
I guess
imagine
we could,
outright theft.
if we want to definitely label, this is abuse. But I think more than anything, I like to get more, I like to get just more descriptive into the behavior of what he did. He took something from you that he shouldn't have taken from you. And so that is therefore illegal. You broke the
Mm.
law. You broke
But
into,
what if he hadn't broken the law? What if he had just, you know, been like, hey, I'll be a good boyfriend for you. And but he was expecting like some financial support. I find that, when you talk about financial abuse, I would imagine that you'd have to be a good target for the abuser to abuse you in that way. Like I think about like,
oh yes,
like,
abusers, perpetrators, I call them perpetrators, they size people up. And
mm,
they ask you questions. They don't say very much. And then of course they love bomb you, depending on the type of person that they are. Those men, they'll love bomb you. Ooh, you worked hard today. Let me rub your feet. They just aren't you the most beautiful person I ever seen? Aren't you? They buttering you up. And you gotta take these relationships very slow and watch people. Don't speed, don't rush, only fools rush in.
yeah.
Definitely. And so yeah, there's different ways of manipulating. I love, how I love watching those TV shows, those documentaries of how men or women would just manipulate the people around them, make them think one thing, and then they just run away with the money. I'm so fascinated by the whole psychology behind that. And but yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely, they try to do things like that, for
Mhm.
sure. For
Okay,
sure.
well, did you want to close this out in terms of now, just so everybody knows, you mentioned in the beginning that you've done a lot of lectures on different topics so far. So if anybody wants to see all those other
Let me
recordings
go.
there, you
Let
can
me go
feel
to my
yeah,
one slide.
yeah, feel free to go to drboyceprime.com and you can log in and join us. Those who are in the Prime program, we are going to do stock option stuff. Either early this week, I'll send you guys some stuff early this week. We did the conference this weekend, but and then next week after Thanksgiving, I'll hit you guys back up and let you guys know which stocks I'm selling options on, so you can go and make you some money. But then also, the therapy I think is really important because right now, with the market kind of doing what it's doing, the economy doing what it's doing, it's really important that you sort of work through whatever feelings you're having and how that's going to affect you as an investor. I mean, you got to have your emotions balanced in order for things to work out. So that's why we're doing financial therapy, and I hope this is benefiting you. So, Dr. Alicia, did you want to finish us up and
I do. I wanted to set a date on the next time we meet, probably maybe December 4th.
yeah. Why don't we set that? Why don't we set that at a different time? Like, and I'll just send out an email
Oh,
to everybody.
now, okay. I was thinking, usually it's offered every other week. So that
Yeah.
was what I talked about. So December 4th, I think maybe the next topic, you know, maybe we can talk about fear of failure is a good one. Maybe financial infidelity or spending addictions. Maybe that's a good one.
I think spending addictions would be fun. What do y'all think? Yeah, because spending addictions are a real problem. That's something that they lean on. That's what corporations lean on to make sure the Christmas season is good, and Black Friday's coming up, and the thing is, everybody is all pumped up to spend so much money at Christmas. We are programmed to spend money during the holidays,
Okay.
and we spend that money, and it's like the crazy thing is you don't get anything really for it in return. You just accept some good feelings, some good memories. That's a good thing, but really, I've been encouraging everybody to invest in something, not just invest in stocks, but it could be investing in books. or you have people like Dr. Claude Anderson, go to powernomics.com and buy a bunch of Powernomics books and give them away. That's what you and I did at our wedding. We gave away, every guest that came to the wedding got a copy of Powernomics. And so it's like, if you're going to spend money, try to do it in a way that's going to give you some sort of long-term benefit, instead of just, spending money just to get it out of your pocket. Because then you
Okay.
can go back to work and get some more. That's
All
stressful.
right. I left a note here so I don't forget. Spending addictions next session. That's pretty cool because we're all doing our Christmas shopping.
Yep.
I know I will be. Boyce, you're gonna get a nice good gift from me.
Well, I can't wait,
By the
baby.
way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know, to end this out, I think that taking advantage of other people and figuring out ways to manipulate people to control them with money is something that you need to just be aware of and be cautious of. And sometimes I'm thinking mostly in relationships and in marriages. Sometimes you do it and you're not conscious of it. It could be something that's totally unconscious of. And I think it's just important to just be aware of how it could be implied or explicit about how you make decisions in your relationships related to money, and what happens if there's conflict there, and what do you do? How do you resolve it? Do you just put your foot down and say it's going to be like this? We're going to spend money on this and that's it. It's a lot of I'm thinking about conflict in relationships in terms of money, and always being just being thoughtful in how you talk to each other and treat each other, and holding each other to a high level of respect. And if you ever fall below that, you need to check yourself and you need to say, I'm sorry, I fell below a level of respect that I think that wasn't viable. And that's something that I don't want to even be associated with. So I apologize for that. It's saying that you're sorry for those things. And, getting into specific behaviors that happen. Sometimes you lose it. You lose it in relationships, and you say things you wish you hadn't have said, or you do things you wish you hadn't have done. But I think it's just important to kind of explore a lot of that and process that in your relationships and make amends. And if you feel like you aren't able to do that, you can seek a helping, a professional, someone like myself. Doesn't have to be me. You can feel free to reach out to me if you need help in any of those areas where you're having a lot of conflict and you're not able to fix any of it on your own. I think there are lots of resources out there. I think we should be cognizant of who is caring for and protecting for our vulnerable people in our family. Like, we're busy. A lot of us are busy with families and children and all of that. And sometimes we leave caregiving of older adults in the hands of someone who probably shouldn't be caring for them. And so, those vulnerable populations are susceptible. It's way more common than you possibly would think it would be. And yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So, all right. So there we go. So this concludes our session for tonight. In general, what I'll say, just to kind of close out, is going back to the idea that money is power, and power can be abused. So if you're in a position to abuse others, it's important to understand the responsibility that comes with that power. Because for example, if you are the employer and you're hiring people, you can be financially abusive and not even know it.
It's there. It could be unconscious. Absolutely. But I'm sorry to jump in. I was just gonna say, you want to
go ahead.
Have an atmosphere in your organization where people feel free to talk about what's going on. And if someone comes to you in your organization and they're concerned about something, you really do need to be empathetic, like, hello, and hear them out, and try to be as fair as possible, although you got to kind of live with whatever the consequences are of your decisions.
Right. So in general, if you're in the position where you are the person in authority, I think it's very important to understand the power. No, Alicia's information, Ken, I'll give you her information right when we get done.
Oh,
If
let
you
me.
want to reach out to her directly. So the if you are a person who is in authority, just understand that the part of what I've been sort of pressing to you guys is as you build your wealth, I will never ever tell you to go out and become a capitalist because capitalism is inherently financially abusive. And so I'm not saying be a capitalist, but I think you have to believe in free enterprise because if you don't believe in free enterprise and you don't strengthen yourself economically, then you will become a victim of abuse from others. Right. So ultimately, this is my position on Dr. Alicia can talk to you about the therapist perspective and everything else. I'm gonna talk to you as the financial guy. I'm talking to you as a black man, and I'm talking to you as a guy who's been fighting his whole life. And one of the things I can tell you is that with the power of money, you have to one understand the importance of not being abusive to others when you do have that power. But number two, economic intelligence, financial literacy, financial preparation, all the things we talk about in the Black Business School is critical for you to be in a position where you're not going to be abused by others. You're not going to be exploited by others because if you don't prepare, then the exploitation is coming. I can guarantee you. So it was great to see everybody. I hope this conversation was helpful to you. If you'd like to see all the recordings of everything that Dr. Alicia does, feel free. If you go to boycewatkins.com, there's a link where you can sign directly up for her financial therapy session. She's done a whole bunch of them. You have full access to everything she's done so far. And you can take a look at that. And also, if you want to join the Prime program, where we show you how to generate consistent income with stock options and other tools that will build your wealth, and the financial therapy comes in for free, then feel free to go to drboyceprime.com. The URL's on the screen. All right, everybody. Well, have a good day. It was good to see you. And thanks a lot, Ben. And I'll talk to you in the kitchen.